And now our next presenter is Fred Stella, and he is the president of the Interfaith Dialogue Association, and he won the Champion of Diversity Award for his work in interfaith religions. He's an ordained outreach minister for the Hindu temple, and he is going to speak on Shanti, the power of peace. Let's welcome.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be back here. And I was not able to make the earlier portion this afternoon or this morning because I'm on the planning committee of a national Hindu conference we're having in New Jersey in a couple of weeks. But I gather from the energy in the room that this has been a very productive day. So I'm honored to be in your company. So let's say somebody goes to the religion store because they want, obviously, a religion. And he walks into the store and he comes up to a salesman and he says, I need a religion. I don't have one right now. And I am seeking peace. So any religion, I'm open to any religion that, could give me this peace. So the salesman thinks for a while, and he says, well, you're welcome to look at any of our models. We've got just about every world religion you can possibly think of, a few indigenous religions. We pretty much are your one-stop shop for all your spirituality needs. I should mention, we do have two on special today. Really? Can you explain to me what you've got? Well, yeah, we've got a special going, first of all, for Orthodox Judaism. Really? Yeah, as a matter of fact, it's ultra-Orthodox Judaism. The guy says, I really do want a religion where I don't have to work terribly hard at it. But I'm open, so tell me, what do you got? What is this ultra-Orthodox Judaism thing that you've got for sale? And he says, well, for one thing, you have to keep all of the commandments. How many people know? How many commandments are there? 10. No, not for the Jews. What you call the 10 commandments or the Decalogue, that's like the top 10. There are 613 commandments in the Bible for Orthodox Jews. This guy doesn't know anything, so the salesman is going like, or the customers are like, wow, really? Like what? What are those commandments? Well, of course, you're going to have to reframe your diet, right? You're not going to be able to have shellfish or pork. You can only have beef or chicken that has been killed according to the law of kashrut to make it kosher. You can't have any cotton wool blends. Every garment that you wear has to be 100% one or the other. You're going to have to wear a hat in public all the time. And, then there's all the morality and the ethics laws. So it covers quite a bit of your life. I see. And just for comparison, what's the other one you got for sale? And he says, well, it doesn't really fall under the rubric of religion, but we do sell it here anyway. It's more of a movement than it is a religion. And it means that you belong to this, you have to be joyful. Really? Yeah. No ritual? No. No church or any? No. Any sort of like guru or pope or leader? Nah. Just be joyful. Really? I said I didn't really want to work too hard. Then the salesman says, oh, so you want to be a Jew? And the guy goes, oh, wait a minute. You just told me I have to follow 613 commandments. I've got to rearrange my life. Oh, that's right. You also have to move to a home close to a synagogue because You're not allowed to drive on Saturdays, and that's when the services are. Really, so I have to uproot myself from one side of town to the other side of town just to be close to a synagogue. I got to keep all of these rules. I got to change my diet. And you're telling me that's the easy one? Oh, yeah, that's the easy one. Think about it. Committing yourself to joy as much as you can, close to 100% of the time, that's challenging. Anything else we do in the name of religion, whether it's fasting or service or anything like that, it doesn't compare to attempting to be joyful, although those other things certainly can add to your joy. But making a commitment to be joyful so that you can attain peace is about the hardest thing you can do. Because think about the idea of being joyful in all of these different environments, in all of these different moods. You can be a member of a standard, a mainstream religion, such as Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And if you follow all of the rules, you're doing pretty darn well, right? You follow the commandments, whether it's 10 or 613. You show up at the place of worship. You do what is expected of you at that place of worship. You tithe or whatever is close to it. Different religions have different rules, regulations, or traditions in terms of how much financial support you give to the institution and to charity, etc. You do all of that, and people look at you and say, "You're a fine person. Look what you do." Your co-religionists look up to you. But nobody expects you to be joyful. Nobody expects you to be at peace. Why? Because that's the real challenge. What's ideal, of course, is because it's very hard to be joyful. There's some people who can do it, but most of us cannot be joyful in isolation. We must be in community. So for those of you who are affiliated with some sort of spiritual community, you have more of an opportunity to be joyful. But think about, what if it was a commandment? Thou shalt be joyful. Thou shalt have peace. You know, if that was the case, if that was a commandment, I'd be going to confession every day, because I'd be breaking that commandment, baby. It is the most challenging thing to do. But I'm here to tell you that as aspirational as it seems, there are people who have done it. Now, being joyful doesn't necessarily mean being happy. It transcends happiness, because happiness has an opposite: sorrow, sadness, right? But what I'm talking about now is called, in Sanskrit, from the Hindu tradition, we call it ananda. And ananda, often we offhandedly describe it or define it as joy, and ahimsa as peace. But it's a little different, because ananda is a kind of joy for which there is no opposite. There is no word that is the opposite. It doesn't have an antonym, right? The way joy has sorrow, happiness has sadness, peace has war, or any number of frustration, all of these things. But ananda is that peace that knows no opposite. And we are promised in the scriptures and through the great ones who have come before us that joy, which leads to inner peace, is possible. And we will only have, and you've heard this said many different times in many different ways, we're not going to have world peace until we are able to experience peace within ourselves. We are not going to be able to convince anyone that peace outside is possible until we are able to be examples of that peace. And there's many, many different ways of doing it. That's why a conference like this is so important, because you have people talking about the possibilities of the evolution of humanity from so many different points of view, that nobody has the one way. So I'm simply talking about one of many ways. So how we go about creating an environment to be joyful as much as possible, and this is also very important, to express the joy appropriate to the moment. So for instance, the joy that you feel, say at somebody's wedding, assuming you're really happy they're getting married, assuming that, the food is good, the band is good, all of those things that make us happy at a wedding. That sort of happiness, that sort of joy is certainly much different from what we might feel at a funeral, unless we're thrilled the guy's gone. Right? Maybe you're an heir. That's joy. Okay. But usually we're not terribly thrilled being at funerals, especially if it's somebody very close. But what the great masters who have come before and are still in our midst are able to do is it's amazing. It's an amazing development. It's an amazing talent that is cultivated through years of spiritual practice. They're able to simultaneously experience that human sense of loss, that human sense of frustration, that human sense of parting with an undercurrent of joy. Because otherwise, they'd be pretty obnoxious walking into a funeral. Hey, how's everybody doing today? I'm just so joyful. Yeah, I heard about that guy. Well, too bad for him, but you know what? No one's stealing my peace. No, what do you want to be, an idiot? Right? Of course not. Of course not. So the important thing that comes from a variety of spiritual practices and sincerity and service is this inner, this sense of peace and joy that's like a current that runs through us, that isn't always obvious. We don't have to walk around giddy all the time. As a matter of fact, I know a few people in my life who walk around giddy, and you know what? They make me lose my peace. Some inside me just wants to slap them. I don't, because that would be against the rule of ahimsa, which is nonviolence. But the thought is there. Thought is there. I've known a number of people. Think about it. Think about people who are just kind of giddy and silly, and that often passes for a sense of joy. But most often, people who are like that can also sink into the very depths of darkness if something goes wrong in their life. So it's much better to be able to maintain this current of joy that just runs through us. And we go through our human lives. And we go through human experiences. And it doesn't mean that we will never be affected by those experiences. What I'm talking about is much more nuanced than just feeling good all the time. We do feel frustrated. We do feel concerned. We do feel loss. But It's kind of like, where are we putting our attention? Sometimes I think it's important to put my attention on the feeling of loss, on the feeling of frustration. But having the ability, and trust me, I'm still a student here. This isn't something that happens 24/7, but I'm better than I was because of practice, where all of a sudden I can it's almost like changing the channel. It's almost like changing the channel. You're feeling this way, and you intentionally cultivate some other feeling. So yes, when I am at a funeral, if it is at a truly tragic funeral, let's face it, a lot of funerals are just gathering places. If it's a funeral that we can readily accept, such as someone who passes away at the age of 98, right? That we can accept that. People don't go, oh my gosh, he had so many good years left. No, we don't say that. We say that he had a good life. God bless him. Let him transit. As opposed to, God forbid, the funeral of a child who was tragically killed. Now, two completely different scenarios there. If I am at the latter, I want to feel that loss. I want to feel that pain. But after a while, I want to be able to get on with my life. I want to be able to serve in the community. So if we can change that channel and move it more quickly than people who do not have the kind of spiritual training that I'm sure many of us here in this room do have, if I can do that, then why not? Then I am of more service, because I am tuning in with that joy, and part of that joy impels me to serve. So in the Hindu Dharma, there are a few things I will say about this. In the Hindu Dharma, there are 4 main paths to this joy and this peace, and in no particular order. So I'll start with bhakti. I'm sure many of you have heard these terms before. Bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga is the yoga, and yoga means union, the ability to unite with divinity. Bhakti yoga is the yoga of devotion, to be able to devote yourself to some representation of higher power. It can be as defined or undefined as you're comfortable with, right? You can have a personal God, you can have a concept, you can have a teacher, whatever it is, devotion, love should emanate from the heart. And then you have what is called karma yoga. And Dr. Lawton was really talking about karma yoga. He never mentioned the term, but that's what we call it, either karma yoga or we call it seva. Pretty much the same thing. And karma yoga is any selfless service that is expended with absolutely no thought of result. You do it because it's just the right thing to do at the time. Now, sometimes we provide some sort of service and we do end up getting something from it. For instance, when we donate to a nonprofit, well, we're going to get a little tax break if we itemize, right? There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that it's not perfect seva. I would say, for instance, if we're walking along the street and we see someone stumble and we immediately reach out and grab them, between the stumble and the save, it's not like we're thinking, oh, what am I getting out of this? It's just instinctual. That is pure seva, pure karma yoga. Then we have jnana yoga. Jnana is the path of wisdom. And the path of wisdom means that we study, that we learn. All of you right now are engaged in a form of jnana yoga because you're giving up a full day to learn, to be able to take spiritual, theological, sociological concepts and turn them into something more concrete in your lives. So you're doing that today. And then we have Raja Yoga. Raja Yoga is the yoga of meditation. To be able to either sequester ourselves individually or to meet as a group and practice silence. And in that silence, doing our very best to contact the divinity that we grow up so often thinking is without, and allow it to awaken within. When we are able to know beyond a shadow of a doubt through our own personal contemplation that divinity exists right here and right there, that there is no place that is devoid of divinity, you can't possibly not feel that peace and that joy. It just sort of happens. By doing these things through service, through contemplation, through learning, through devotion, we are more easily able to experience that joy. Now, again, this is aspirational, meaning that not everybody is going to be able to experience this in this lifetime necessarily. But I do believe it is possible. And here's something that I know is possible. Even if you're not able to reach the heights that I'm talking about right now, I can tell you from personal experience that you will be able to recover more quickly. So when you do experience sorrow and setbacks, if you have a strong spiritual practice and a deep faith in the processes, then you're able to bounce back more quickly. Whatever issues you're going through, I firmly believe you'll get through it and come out on the other side sooner. I've just noticed it in my life where something would bug me for a few days. Now it might bug me for an hour. Lose my peace for an hour. Okay, that's worth the price of admission, as opposed to losing days over frustration and anger. Allowing having the ability to be able to say, I'm just going to get through this. There's a story, a Hindu story of a king who thought he would just be cocky and said, I will give half my kingdom to anyone who can make me cry when I'm happy and make me happy when I cry. No one could take him up on it until some elder sage walks in the palace, says, I think I can do that for you. And he says, oh yeah, how are you going to do that? He says, just wear this ring. Really? All I have to do is wear a ring? Yeah. Well, puts the ring on. I don't feel anything. No, you don't right now, but you will. And finally, the king looked and he saw an inscription on the ring. It said, this too shall pass. Mm-hmm. So he would laugh when he would cry, and he would cry when he would laugh, or be happy when he was sad, or be sad when he was happy. Realize that the nature of this world is transience. We are in a world of relativity, but we are connected to a deep power that is above and beyond this relativity. And the more we connect with it, the more we are able to find that peace and to find that joy. Because the soul, the deepest part of you and the deepest part of me is the soul. In Hindu Dharma, we don't use the phrase my soul or your soul, because that indicates possession, right? Something is possessing the soul. If I say my soul, then who's the my? The soul, you can't get any more me than the soul. You can't get any more you than the soul. So we don't say that we have souls, we say that we are souls. And the soul is joy. The soul is peace. The more we cultivate that individually, the more we are able to express that and to bring others into that form of peace. And that, unfortunately, in the world today, you see very few peaceful people protesting for peace. Sometimes you do, and it's wonderful. But when you see angry people, when you see violent people screaming peace, I would question their PR department. It's not. I much prefer a more Gandhian way of protest, where we offer ourselves up as a silent assembly that is making a statement, as opposed to being just as bad as the people who might be the opposite of what we might all want together. So my time is up, and so I'm going to any questions. Certainly feel free to ask at the round table, which is coming up shortly. So, namaste. God bless.